What's up, folks? The Comics Kid 2099 here to talk to you about Superman the Animated Series, like I do every Saturday. Today, I will be talking about the Season 1 two-parter, The Main Man. If you haven't seen these episodes, watch them now before you listen to the rest of this video. And while you're doing that, I'm going to quickly sum up the plot of these episodes before I get into the review itself. While the galactic bounty hunter Lobo is grabbing an alien villain for his boss, he's captured by a creature called the Collector, who wants to hire Lobo to grab Superman for his collection of creatures that are the last of their kind. Lobo goes to Earth, finds Superman, and gets in a big brawl that leads to outer space, where the Collector kidnaps both of them. It is here that Lobo finds out that the Collector wants him as well, as he is also the last of his kind. Lobo and Superman, both weakened by the tools of the Collector, reach an agreement to help each other escape as long as Lobo leaves the people of Earth alone. They reluctantly work together, defeating the Collector, with Lobo returning to his boss with the guy he was supposed to capture, and Superman taking the Collector's collection of rarities back to Earth, giving them a home in what we the audience know is the new Fortress of Solitude. One thing that's mentioned in the special features on the box set for this season, and something that I've mentioned in some of my episode reviews before, is that Superman's rogues gallery is lacking characters who can really be tough enough to handle Superman. Luthor is never physically a match for Superman, and he's Superman's arch nemesis. After that, you get Brainiac, Metallo, and Parasite, who could conceivably be a match for Superman. Doomsday too, but we never get to see him in this series, so for the purposes of this conversation, he doesn't really count. So the people behind this series had two options before them: create new villains like Livewire, Luminous, or Volcana, or use characters who aren't generally connected to Superman, who could pose something of a threat like Darkseid or Lobo. But Lobo, while a morally reprehensible scoundrel, isn't as reviled as Space Satan Darkseid, and has just enough fans that it becomes difficult to build a story around him. In this two-parter, Lobo endangers countless innocent civilians in Metropolis, and at least twice entertains the idea of doing so again, all to make $1. It's even mentioned that he destroyed all life on his own planet for fun. This is a guy who should be thrown into the Phantom Zone if Superman knew about it at this point. But because people like Lobo, despite the villain that he is, he gets to lounge in relaxation drinking a Mai Tai at the end of the story. Now, like I hinted, part of that is that fans who are not the Comics Kid 2099 already like Lobo, but also I'd say a big part of it comes from Brad Garrett bringing some charm to his performance here. Lobo is still a straight-up villain here, but he does become much more likable with Garrett bringing him to life. And even though Lobo has always been a cartoonish parody of the 1980s anti-hero, strangely enough, Garrett doesn't turn Lobo into too much of a cartoon here. His voice here doesn't sound all that different than what he was doing in Everybody Loves Raymond around this time. I think part of that comes from the desire to make the DC animated universe feel like a real world with real people, and not goofy cartoons with silly characters doing silly voices. So no, I'm not the biggest fan of Lobo, and him being such a prominent part of this episode does make it difficult for me to enjoy this episode as much as someone who loves Lobo. But even with that being said, there's quite a few things about this episode I really did like. For one, regardless of my feelings on the character of Lobo, like I said earlier, the people making this show were looking for other characters to pit Superman against, and Lobo is a very logical choice. Superman is everything wholesome and right in the world, and Lobo is everything disgusting and filthy. Of course they should fight each other. I'm kind of surprised that these two haven't butted heads more often than what they have. I'm also very impressed that the folks making this show were able to take such a vile character whose every third word is a swear word and make him suitable enough to put in a Saturday morning cartoon show meant for children. This episode also shows us something the people making the show really struggled with, both here and in the Justice League cartoon. They didn't want Superman even at his depowered levels that he was at in the Post-Crisis on Infinite Earths reboot. They wanted him weak enough that it wouldn't just take kryptonite to hurt him, because otherwise you have to use kryptonite to manufacture drama, and that would get old very quickly. This episode shows that good old-fashioned brute strength might not knock him down for good, but it will slow him down a little bit. And we also get to see the red solar radiation chestnut, which sadly we don't get nearly enough of in this series. And in my review of the episode Stolen Memories, I talked a great deal about how this series mostly pays homage to the Post-Crisis on Infinite Earths era of Superman stories, but this episode manages to have its cake and eat it too. While Lobo is just barely a pre-crisis character, he never met Superman until after the Byrne relaunch in 1986, so this entire episode is very much playing in its usual wheelhouse of saluting that era of Superman stories, but it also uses the vehicle of the Collector taking the last of different alien species as a way to pay homage to the Fortress of Solitude, which has always been more of a Silver Age thing, even though it does exist in more modern stories. And as I've said before, seeing this series pull from multiple eras of Superman history for this series is something that I've always enjoyed seeing. And those are my thoughts on this episode. I liked it quite a bit, even though I'm not a huge fan of the character of Lobo, but it was nice getting to see a non-Superman villain show up, even if just for a couple of episodes. It keeps things fresh, and it keeps us guessing on which characters are going to show up next in the series. Anyway, I liked this episode quite a bit, and I hope you guys did as well. And if you did, and if you liked my review, be sure to click like, share, comment, and subscribe. Do all that usual stuff that you usually do with YouTube videos, and be sure to come back next week to see what else I will be talking about. And come back next Saturday to hear me talk about another episode of Superman the Animated Series. In the meantime, I will see you guys in the future. Have a great rest of the day.